When a Cisco device starts up, it performs three basic functions. First of all, it finds and checks its hardware. Second, it finds and loads the iOS image, the operating system. Thirdly, it will find and apply device configurations. During this first step, the finding and checking of hardware, the router or switch will perform a power-on self-test. During the second step, the finding and the loading of the operating system, the router loads the operating system from flash, loads the operating system into RAM, random access memory, where it will run the operating system. During the third step, the router finds and applies any device configuration. That configuration would be loaded from the startup config, which is located in non-volatile RAM, NVRAM. If there is no valid configuration file in NVRAM, the router will start up in what's referred to as setup mode. Setup mode is similar to a wizard, which provides basic configuration parameters for the router. The switch, however, has an initial default configuration and requires no configuration in order to operate.
The Cisco router includes a setup mode that guides you through the initial router configuration. This program asks you a series of questions about configuring the router. The router is configured based on your responses. There are two ways to enter the setup mode. The first is to use the erase NVRAM command to delete the startup config file. When the router reloads, it will be unable to find the startup file and will automatically enter setup mode. This is similar to what happens when you first power on a new router. The second way to enter setup mode is to type the setup command in privileged exec mode. In this demonstration, I'll show you how to use setup mode to perform basic router configuration tasks. The first question you are asked is whether you want to continue with the setup dialog. Type Y or yes to continue, or type N or no to quit. Typing any other character re-prompts. Setup mode has two dialog modes, basic and extended. The basic setup mode configures a limited set of functions on the router. It is shorter than extended mode, but does not offer as many choices. In this demonstration, I'll do the basic setup. You are then prompted to supply various parameters. For example, I need to supply the router host name. The value in the brackets indicates a default value. I can press Enter to accept the default or type a different value. You are then prompted for the following passwords: enable secret, enable password, and virtual terminal. In this example, the router has already been partially configured, so I'll accept the current values. Because I don't want to configure SNMP, I'll answer no to this prompt. Next, I'm shown a list of router interfaces and statuses. Basic setup mode prompts you to select one of the interfaces. This interface will be configured to allow basic connectivity so you can connect and complete other router configuration tasks. If you want to configure other interfaces, select the extended setup routine. In this example, I'll configure the Ethernet interface. Notice that I need to supply the interface name exactly as it appears, not a shortened form. To make a virtual terminal connection through the interface, I'll need to configure it for IP. I supply the IP address and the subnet mask. This router is a 2505 model. This means it has a built-in hub on its Ethernet interface. This prompts me if I want to enable all hub ports. Again, the default is yes. When I'm done entering values, I'm shown the resulting configuration file. I then have the option of quitting without saving, returning to setup mode without saving, or saving and exiting. The default is to save and exit. As you can see, the basic setup mode sets router identification and passwords. It configures one interface with an IP address and subnet mask and enables the interface. Use the extended setup mode if you want to configure more than one interface, configure additional protocols besides IP, or if you want to configure dynamic routing protocols. Enter setup mode in one of two ways. Erase the startup config file and reboot the router, or use the setup command in privileged exec mode.